So if you think about it, when we were in these relationships, at the very least, we felt very emotionally unsafe the entire time that we were in that well, not the entire time, but for a majority of the time that we were in that relationship, we felt at least emotionally unsafe, if not also physically unsafe. So we were constantly on this like fight or flight response, and we were hyper vigilant like all the time throughout the relationship. And unfortunately, it's kind of become the brain's comfort zone. And it takes a while to get past that. And a lot of it just comes with reminding yourself that you are now safe, and that you're not in that environment anymore. And a lot of the things that I did was I really just started to shift the focus back into taking care of myself. So, for instance, I would think about things that used to be meaningful to me that maybe I hadn't done in a while, or maybe I wasn't allowed to do, or maybe felt like I couldn't do during the relationship. I started to reclaim these activities like one by one. So like I started to work out again. I started to have more quality time with my friends. I started to spend more quality time with family. I started to journal again. Like I just started doing these things that helped take care of me. And in a way that kind of helped me feel safer because I was able to take care of myself again. And I know that may kind of be an interesting concept, but it actually really did work for me. And I talk about that in the course that I wrote, which is called Breaking Free from Rumination course, because part of this issue that we're dealing with is this obsessive thinking cycle where there's so many things that are on replay in our brain over and over and over again. And that was like one of the first steps that I did to help break that cycle. So if you do feel like you are struggling just kind of putting a plan together, because that's what I struggled with. Nobody could really give me like XYZ plan, like here's what you need to do. And I was in therapy, but nobody could really give me that plan. That's what that course is for. You can go to my bio. It's in that link that's underneath like my profile, and you can go and check it out. It's 6 weeks. It literally does everything. Like it lays everything out for you. It gives goals for the week, gives you worksheets. There's articles that explains a lot of things and why we're not crazy. We just have things that are actually going on. And the whole reason I wrote that course was so that way people could have the resources and the plans that I didn't have. So again, that's called the Breaking Free from Rumination course, and the link of that is in my bio. So I hope that answered that question. Is it typical for them to contact you with an apology and then accuse you of contacting them? I'm sorry, I'm giggling. I'm giggling because yes, that is typical. Sorry if I sound like I'm yelling, it's just because I want to make sure y'all can hear me. So my ex actually did give me kind of like a blanket apology after I left, and kind of did this whole like martyr thing. Like, oh, I can't wait for you to find someone that's so much better than me. Like, you deserve so much better. But when it came down to like specific accountability, like when I found out, why is this? Like when it came down to specific accountability, like I found out that he cheated after we broke up. He still wouldn't admit that. And that's when he actually kind of threw a fit. Well, if you just want to believe these random people over me, then blah, 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 then you just don't know me at all. Well, that's a true statement. I didn't know you at all. But yeah, and they want to do this like fake apology or phantom apology or blanket apology, still not necessarily holding themselves specifically accountable to things, because then it still makes them kind of look like the good guy, and it makes them look like, or good gal. And then 100% they're going to turn around. And sometimes, and we have to remember with like narcissistic and toxic people, there's a lot of like things that we'll see out of them, but that doesn't mean it's black and white where like all of them are going to do this and all of them are going to do that. It doesn't work that way. But it's not surprising to me that they would accuse you of being the one to contact them, especially if they're like saying this to other people, because you have to remember they live in this whole distorted reality. Like they literally create a reality in their own mind, so that way they can dodge accountability from situations that are happening in their life. And they're also going to create the reality where they're never the problem. So they're probably telling people like, oh yeah, you know, she reached out to me and I even tried apologizing, but she still doesn't want anything to do with me. You know, she's just so toxic. You know, like they'll twist anything. They have a little bit of truth in their story, and then they'll twist it around to where it like goes back in their favor. And that's super common. How long is too long to talk about narcissistic abuse? I was told to let it go and stop talking about it. That's a good question. So one of the things we have to remember is not everybody's going to understand this. It's not everybody's job to understand this. Because people either get this or they don't. And if they don't, well, God bless them, because that means they've never gone through it. But those people that don't understand it, and guys, let me know if you can't hear me, by the way, when I'm like back here by the tree. But if they don't understand it, then they're not going to understand all the mental games that you have to like overcome and all the mental processes that you're dealing with. So I had a couple friends, and God love them. They were trying to be supportive, like they were just trying to encourage my healing. I know they were, because I know their intentions, and quite frankly, I knew that they never really liked my ex to begin with. But they would make these comments to me about like, you know, you just need to stop talking about him, because when you keep talking about him, you know, you're still living in it and blah, blah, blah. Now, here's the thing. There is some truth to that, because we can get to this place. Sorry. We can get into a place, and this goes back to that obsessive thinking that I was talking about. We can get to this place where our processing can become dwelling. I do think that, I even say in my course, I think that there is a element of the obsessive thinking that is healthy in a way, because what it does is it allows you to start looking back on the relationship with clear eyes and with more of a different knowledge base, because now you kind of understand who this person is and you understand these traits. So there's an element of it that I do think is good, because you can piece things together that maybe didn't make sense at one point in time, and it helps you realize that you weren't necessarily the problem and that you really did have this real experience. Because the unfortunate thing with emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse and gaslighting and blame shifting and all of that we deal with in these kind of relationships is there's no receipts. Like, we can't necessarily prove our experience to people. You know, don't get me wrong, no kind of abuse is okay. But, you know, with physical abuse, like, you have scars and you have bruises and you have the pictures, like, you can physically show the abuse, which is why when I got out of the relationship, I didn't consider it that I was in an abusive relationship, because when I thought about abuse, that's what I thought of. Like, that's what my brain would go to. But the reality is I was very much in an abusive relationship. So there is a portion of it that is healthy. But we do have to, if you get to the point where you were thinking about and trying to process the same thing over and over and over and over again, now we're at the part where we're in like the rumination, and we're at a part where we just have to accept that it was what it was. And I talk about that in my course as well, just like reaching radical acceptance, because there is a difference between acceptance and understanding. We're not going to understand it all, but that doesn't mean that we can't accept it. We actually need to accept it, that it is what it is, and they were who they were, and there was nothing that we could have done to prevent their actions. It just was inevitable, and we have to accept that in order to move on. So if you feel like you find yourself talking about or thinking about the same thing over and over again, then that's where we can start shifting that energy to be like, you know what? If I want to sit here and dwell about this, I need to go do something productive first. And I would like make little deals with myself. Like, okay, I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to finish the laundry, or I'm going to take my Christmas tree down. And if I still am thinking about it, I'll allow myself to sit there in it for a little bit. And a lot of times after I just redirected myself, I have 3 kids, and when you think about with children, one of the best ways to handle toddlers sometimes when they start to throw a fit is to redirect them. And you kind of almost have to have that thinking with yourself, if you can get yourself to redirect in a way, then you can get yourself off of that path. And again, guys, I have a course that goes into all of this in detail. It is the resource that I wish that I had, and it's called Breaking Free from Rumination course. It's a 6-week plan to help you get out of the obsessive thinking cycle. The link to that's in my bio. Please don't wait any longer to stay stuck in this cycle, because you can stay stuck in it for a very, very long time because we just don't have the tools to know how to get out of it. So that, again, that's in my bio, and there's also a lot of book recommendations in there too. Bum, bum, bum. Sorry, I'm just making sure. Let me do it this way. There we go. Mine said when he cheated, it was my fault because I wouldn't get a job. Okay. Isn't it funny? Well, at least yours admitted it. I had the screenshots and mine still said that he didn't do it. I'm like, really, bro? They sent me the screenshots. This person I've never met knows my address. You didn't get it from me? But yeah, they will. They'll come up with ridiculous things. I had one client on a coaching call tell me, this one made me laugh. Well, you know what I mean. Laugh because it's so absurd. That he said, I cheated because I just hurt you so bad and I couldn't live with myself anymore. I'm sorry, my allergies are really bad today, so you might hear me clear my throat a lot. So yeah, they'll literally come up with anything, any kind of reason to blame it on you. I try to understand and I never will. No, we're not. We're not ever going to understand it. And if you want to know why we won't ever understand it, it's really simple. It's because we're not like them. So in order for us to understand this, we would literally have to reduce ourselves down as a human being in order to understand it. And I don't know about you. Reaching understanding was just not that important to me. I don't want to be anything like him. I don't want to have the mental capacity to understand why he did what he did. But again, that doesn't mean we can't accept it. I often can't find words to explain why this hurts. I've been out for 2 years and I still struggle. Well, because it is hard to put into words. I mean, how do you describe the fact that whoever, I just remember saying to my friends, I'm realizing now he's nothing that I thought that he was, and he's everything that I was afraid he was. How do you come to, it's really hard to come to terms that you didn't know this person at all, and everything that you thought that they were, they weren't. Everything they wanted you to believe that they were, they weren't. And it is really hard. After this last one, I realized it's a pattern for me, so now I'm terrified of dating at all. Okay, so hear me out on this one. If you're starting to recognize that this is a pattern, hold 1 second. If you're starting to recognize that this is a pattern for you and for your dating, also if y'all hear random crashing in the background, it's because my cat and my dog they chose violence today. Whatever. But if you are recognizing that this is a pattern, first of all, it's great that you're recognizing that it's a pattern, because you can't change a pattern if you don't know that it's there. But the thing that I would work on, and this is where therapy was really helpful for me, and you can, if you can't, I know therapy is trauma-informed therapy, a trauma therapist is really great for this, because what therapy helped me with was being able to understand what happened to me in my past, or in my childhood or young adult life, whatever it may be, that allowed me to accept this kind of behavior from an individual. That's what therapy was the greatest tool for me for. It's different than with coaching, because with coaching, like what I do as a coach, it's more about like the day-to-day stuff to like move forward. And there is a little bit of element of like belief systems. Actually, we talk about that a lot on my coaching call, because a lot of what this can stem from too, and accepting these kind of behaviors, is how we view ourselves and what are our inner beliefs about ourselves. And if we don't change how we view ourselves, and we don't change our belief system about ourselves, then yeah, we're going to continue to accept these behaviors. So I would start, that's where I would start, is I would start just asking, why did I think that this is okay? You know, were you raised in this kind of environment to where this is just normal, and you don't know other kinds of relationships? You maybe don't know what healthy relationships look like. What are your belief systems about yourself? Are there things that people said to you or about you in your youth or young adult life that you still believe? Are there stories that you've told yourself over the years that you still believe? So like for me, one of my stories is that I'm not enough. And then when I got cheated on, that reiterated that story to where I just didn't feel like I was good enough, or I was always second best. So we have to understand the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves, and that will also reveal why we accept these behaviors from individuals in a much deeper way. So again, working on that belief system, because the way that you have to think about it is our beliefs, they affect our thoughts, and our thoughts affect our actions. So everything backs up to to what our beliefs are. 1 second. The only downside with me putting up and taking down my tree is, not surprising, all of my stuff is like covered in glitter. It's like a disaster. Oh, also, by the way, just in general, if you guys are at this point, or want to know if you're at this point, or maybe just kind of want to do some preemptive work, there is a webinar coming up on January 25th. It's being hosted by Stronger Than Before is her handle. You've probably seen her. It's called Dating Again, and it's about how to essentially avoid going through this again, and how to avoid like being hurt after we deal with these kinds of relationships. The registration's pretty cheap. I want to say it's only like $25 maybe, but anybody that registers, they get a recording of the webinar for free. Outside of that, like after the webinar, you have to go back and pay for the recording, but if you're registered, you get it for free. So even if you can't make it, you'll get it. There's also a live Q&A. It's a panel of 6 people. The panel's awesome. I'm not even going to try to say the panel because I don't remember everybody's handle's name, but I know the registration for that, I went ahead and put that up in the link in my bio too. This is the first webinar that I've seen that specifically talks about dating after narcissism. So there is that resource for you guys too. Oh my gosh, there's like, I have my back door open, so I have like flies coming in. It's gross. I was blamed for his rap career not taking off yet, even though I was putting more promotion than him. Well, of course, they have to have somebody to blame. Sorry. One of my core beliefs is that it's not real. Like, nothing I've been through is a big deal. Oh, that's, I did this, especially after my ex. One of the reasons that I did this was because I invalidated my trauma. Because the reality is, since he never actually did lay his hands on me, I kind of felt like I was being dramatic because I knew that there were people out there that had it way worse than me. And here's what I had to realize. Though that's very true, there are a lot of people out there that had it way worse than I did. That doesn't mean that my experience wasn't real. And it doesn't mean that my experience was not traumatic for me as well. And one of the reasons that we kind of shield ourselves from that, and one of the reasons that we maybe make our experience seem less real in our minds, is because it's almost a way to protect ourselves from the emotional pain of realizing what we've been through. Because there is a level of, not just a level, there's a ton of grief that happens after these relationships, because you have to think you're grieving so many parts of you, and you're grieving so many things. Like, you're grieving the loss of who you thought that this person was. You're grieving the future that you thought you were building with them. You're grieving the parts of yourself that you had to give up in order to make this relationship work. And when you get to this place where you actually like accept what happened to you, it's painful. So I think a lot of us will shield how bad it was, or try to minimize our own trauma as a subconscious way to protect ourselves and to shield ourselves from pain. One of the phrases that I used to say a lot after I left him was, well, I know there's a good person deep down in there. You know, he wasn't all bad. Girl, someone that cheated on me for the last 5 months of our relationship, someone that lied to me from day one of our relationship about his past, someone who, oh God, I mean, he lied about everything. Someone who would throw things and just have these big adult temper tantrums and scream at me until the veins were popping out of his neck. That's not a good person. And I had to just, and what I was doing was, again, I was trying to shield myself from accepting the fact I was manipulated and I was wrong. Because it sucked. I mean, it really did. I went to a therapist who specialized in narcissistic abuse, and that helped me realize that I was not imagining it. Well, I'm first of all just glad that you were even able to find somebody that acknowledged it. There's a lot of therapists out there that don't even think that narcissistic abuse is a thing, because it's not technically in the DSM-5. My therapist, I was fortunate that she recognized like narcissistic behavior. She was actually the one that helped me put a word to what I went through. Because here's the crazy thing. I was a psychology major. Like, I had heard the word narcissism before. Honestly, I forgot that there was even a personality disorder, and mine didn't have it, but I just, like, it never occurred to me that this was, like, a real thing. You know what I mean? Like, so I was fortunate with that, with my therapist as well, so I'm glad you were able to find that validation. It's hard to do that. Hello, hello. Ooh, wow. I just had a bunch of comments at one time. Hold on. We just broke up a week ago, and I already feel like I don't love him. That's good. It took me a little longer than that. Actually, it took me a couple months. But it is interesting how I literally woke up one day, and all attraction that I had to at one point in time was gone. And that was the only time that I really felt like staying in contact with him for a little while. Because we were still in contact for about 4.5 months. Somewhere between 4 and 5 months. After the breakup. And it actually, now don't get me wrong, I don't recommend it. But for me, what staying in contact did was it helped me see who he really was more. Because the manipulation never stopped. Like, it didn't stop after After the relationship ended, it continued. So it allowed me to, and as I was learning about narcissistic people and narcissism, because I wasn't on TikTok at this point, so I was figuring all this out on my own, like through research and Googling and all of that, and in therapy. Like, I had never heard of the word gaslighting before until my therapist said it. And it was funny, she said it in a session one day as though she assumed that I knew what it was. And I went back for the next session the next week and she used it again. And I'm like, okay, what is that? Like, what is gaslighting? And then she told me, explained it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that was like my entire relationship with him. Like, I didn't know what any of this was. But the more that I saw him for who he was, it was like I just woke up one day and I was like borderline disgusted. Like, really. So I'm glad you got to that point a lot faster than I did. I've dated a healthy person after my narcissist, but I still think of my narcissist. If you don't mind me asking, when you are thinking about them, what is it that you're thinking about? Like, do you feel like you miss them? Is it like a comparing thing? Like, because I know a lot of people, like, they compare how they felt in the love bombing stage, and it's not the same in a healthy relationship, because you're just not being bombarded with this, like, affection and all of that. It's normal and healthier. So, like, when you say that, what do you mean? And that will help. That will help me. Hi, what are we talking about today? We're talking about whatever. It's just an open Q&A. I'm taking my Christmas tree down. I have no agenda today. I'm just hanging out. Oh no, I dropped things. I don't obsess over, like, the energy shifted back to me. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I read a part 3. It's our 30th something breakup, so it took a lot of time. But this last time, I all of a sudden felt relief. And, like, I lost feelings. Not feeling love and not hate. I just don't obsess over. Like, the energy shifted back to me. That's the really important part. And that's what I talk about a lot in my course, which is how to shift our energy back to us. Because we really can get into this place where we're stuck. And this isn't to be harsh, but if we have all of this time and all this mental energy to, like, think about them and replay the relationship and, do it over and over again in our brain, we have the time and we have the energy to be pouring back into ourselves. We just haven't figured out how to shift over there. And that's what was so frustrating for me, is because this obsessive thinking cycle, it felt like an addiction. Like, it felt very out of my control. And that was I had never dealt with this before. Like, I had gone through a divorce before him, and I didn't deal with this, like, mental rut that I was in. I never dealt with it before. I mean, I was doing things like, I went psycho, is what it felt like. Like, I was making fake accounts on dating apps just to see if I could find him on it. That's the level of, like, cray I went. And I hated it, because that wasn't me. Again, I never, ever dealt with something like this before. But it's just, nobody, well, my dog got a hold of that one. Nobody can help me. And they tried, but, like, nobody was telling me what to do. Like, nobody was saying, okay, so this week I want you to do this. Like, this week I want you to do that. And it literally, like, it was all trial and error for me. Like, I had to try things on my own and figure out what worked. And I think if I had just had a plan, and I almost had just had a playbook, like, before, like, if someone had just laid things out for me, I think I would have gotten over it a lot faster. And that's why I wrote my course. So again, if you guys feel like you do need that help to like be able to shift that focus, it's the Breaking Free from Rumination course. It's how to reclaim your peace and clarity after narcissism. The link to that's in my bio. Please get started on that and don't wait any longer, because I promise you, if I had had this or any kind of resource like this when I was going through it, I would have gotten over it a lot faster. I know I would have. Have you spoken with many people who leave their abuser and go almost straight to a new one? Unfortunately, yes. I wouldn't say it's not unheard of. And I say this with nothing but love. Like, I'm not saying this from a place of judgment at all. Oftentimes when we see that, it's because there's still... Sorry, I'm looking more for these things that they're middle. Oftentimes when we see that happen, it's because people really haven't dealt with the codependency. Now, I don't talk about this part very often, but here we go. I did not go from one abuser to another. And again, sorry I'm clearing my throat so much. My allergies are awful today. But I tried dating way too soon. And I mean, I'm talking like within a month. Like, it was maybe 3 weeks. Like, it was really, really, really fast. And it was because I was desperately afraid of being alone. And I really struggled with this, an identity of my own. And I was codependent. Like, that's really what it boils down to. Now, fortunately, like I said, it's not that I went from one abuser to another, but because I wasn't ready and I was still such a freaking mess after what happened with my abuser, I ended up hurting that guy because I just wasn't ready. Like, I know that I hurt his feelings really bad because I was all over the place. And, you know, I was trying to force myself to be ready to be in a relationship when I wasn't. And, you know, in a way I led him on. Not intentionally. I really wasn't intending to do it, but I was not ready. And this is why I get really frustrated when I hear people say, oh, I have people telling me, like, I just need to move on. You know that phrase, like, if you want to get over a guy, get under a new one. That stuff is just such BS. Like, I mean, it really is. Because if you are not ready, and you know you're not ready, do not. Like, do not try to force it. Because I was listening to that kind of advice from other people, too. And like I said, a really, really nice guy, I ended up hurting his feelings really bad over it. Now, I made amends later, and I apologized to him later. Like, I did what I needed to do. But I knew I wasn't ready, and I tried to force myself to be ready. Do not do that. You're just going to set yourself up to hurt yourself and potentially hurt other people. Sorry, I'm just catching up on comments. 6 weeks ago, I ended it for good. I have overwhelming disgust, guilt, and loss of promised dreams. Oh, man, I remember how that felt. Okay, let's talk about the guilt. Now, if you're feeling guilt about leaving, do not. And I know, it's like, oh, well, why didn't I think of that? I know you thought about that. But if you are feeling guilt for leaving them, understand you did not do this to them. They did it to themselves. My ex was sleeping on some random friend's couch for 3 months after he left, or after I kicked him out. I don't feel bad that he had to go through that as consequences of his actions. Them losing you is a result of their choices, and you don't have anything to feel guilty for choosing you over their abuse. Now, if you are feeling guilty in the sense of just like one of the things that I felt guilty about, I had kids from a previous marriage. I had dad guilt like crazy because I let this like monster essentially in my home and in my circle and around my children, and I felt really guilty for that. Oh no. Oh no. Sorry, I got big girl booty problems and I just knocked that over. And the dad guilt, that was the hardest part for me to get over because I am obsessed with my kids and I love my kids and I would do anything to protect them. And in this instance, I didn't. Or at least I felt like I didn't. And here's the thing. He was always the best whenever my kids were around because I have 50-50 custody with their mom. So I would have them 3 or 4 days a week. She has them 3 or 4 days a week. Whenever my kids were around, that was when he was at his best. It was when they left was when it got bad. So in my mind, I was like, well, you know, at least he treats the kids well. And for the most part, he did. But the problem is that I was not at my best because I was dealing with all this emotional manipulation and all this. If you like think about like my stress scale from a scale of 1 to 10, I was constantly operating at a 7. So anytime that like something small would happen, like if my kid spilled, like there was one time my kid, he dropped a jar of pickles. It was glass and I had tile floor, so it shattered everywhere. I had almost a meltdown over a jar of pickles, but it's because like something that normally is only like a 3 or 4 on a 10-point scale, well, my baseline's a 7. So when that happened, it popped me off the scale. And I felt really guilty about that because since I wasn't at my best, I couldn't be my best for my kids. And my biggest piece of advice if you're dealing with any kind of self-guilt after this is you need to understand that it's not that you were stupid, it's that you were masterfully manipulated. It's not that you we wouldn't have allowed this person into our life and into our circle if we knew who they really were. Like, we were manipulated. And then, yes, we do want to hold ourselves accountable for the fact, like, yes, there were red flags that I ignored, I should have left earlier, and all of that. But I also can't hold my past self to the knowledge and the standards that my present self has. I didn't know what I knew back then. I didn't have the self-value that I have now. I, in a way, was kind of weak-minded back then. I felt like I needed someone to be completed. I don't feel that way anymore. So instead, I look back on that person and I remember how broken he was, and I'm more gracious towards him and commit to that past self that I'm not going to make the same mistakes twice. And that helped me a lot. So attractive. January 2nd marked 1 whole year free from my narcissistic ex. Congratulations. Sorry, I'm just reading. I have guilt over the shoulda, woulda, especially with our child. Like, I should have left when I was pregnant. Yeah, I mean, I truly do understand. The coulda, shoulda, woulda guilt. Did you leave your ex-wife for your ex-narcissist? No, I did not. He was my first same-sex relationship, but I didn't leave her for anybody. Agreed, but sometimes logic gets overrun by emotions. Yes, it does. Here's why. Especially with these kinds of relationships. So when you were in the relationship, we actually became very emotionally driven in the relationship for several reasons. One was because our emotions were being played, and because like we allowed And again, I'm not saying this to be harsh. Like, this is just how it went. We were allowing our empathic emotions to take over and to make our decisions for us. And this is where, like, the evidence of this is when we would say things like, well, if I could just show him what a healthy relationship looks like this will get better. Or, you know, he had a rough childhood, like, he doesn't mean to be this way. You know, we had a lot of these, like, emotionally driven statements that were directing a lot of our behavior. And it kind of caused us to put our logical thinking on the back burner. Well, again, a lot of what happened in a emotionally abusive relationship is we just essentially had a lot of bad habits that formed. The good news about that is, it's just like any other bad habit, you can change it. Bad news is, like any other bad habit, it doesn't just go away on its own. You don't just break a bad habit, you replace it with a better one. So when you leave the relationship, whether it's you left or they left you, this emotionally driven side of you still stays very active. And that's where we can feel like we missed them, or, you know, we question if we were the problem. We question if, like, was it really all that bad? You know, well, that didn't work. You know, we can feel lonely, and when we feel lonely, we can make a decision like we break or no contact. You know, we can get very emotionally driven. And here's the thing, we don't want to ignore the emotion. I'm sorry, I know I'm making so much noise right now. Give me a second. I broke this. OMG. I hate this box. We're gonna move on. We can get to this point to where we don't want to ignore the emotions that we're feeling, but we do want to learn how to balance them. So, for example, when I felt like I missed him, I acknowledged the fact that, like, I missed him. So I asked myself, and this was a journaling exercise that I do, and y'all feel free to steal it, please. I said, well, what do I miss right now? And I remember this clear as day. I missed having someone to come home to. I missed being intimate with the same person and the comfortability of that. I missed having someone to talk to my day about. You know, I missed sharing my life with a person. My second question I asked, did he give me what I needed in these areas? Well, of all the things I wrote down, there was only one thing that he gave me what I needed in those areas, and that was cuddling at night. Well, that doesn't speak too much to his capacity of a relationship, because my cat cuddles me very great at night, and if that's the best that he did out of my entire list, that's not speaking much for him. But when it came to, like, talking to someone about my day, you know when you're talking to somebody and you can just kind of, like, tell that they're waiting for you to stop talking so that way they can take over the conversation again? That was every time. Or he would always try to, like, one-up my day. Like, if my day was good, his had to be better. If my day was bad, he had to be worse. Or he would just straight up interrupt me, which is, like, my biggest pet peeve. You can ask my fiance. I hate being interrupted. You know, when it came to, like, being intimate with the same person, he was in control of our sex life. Like, if he wanted it, we did it. If he didn't, he made sure I knew he didn't want it. Well, that's not a healthy dynamic. So it's like everything that I missed, he didn't give me what I needed in those areas. So the third question was, what do I not miss? That list was long. So by the time that I was done with that list, I didn't feel like I missed him anymore. So the point I'm trying to make with this exercise is, I acknowledged the fact that the emotion existed, which is that I missed him. But what I also did was I re-taught myself how to bring logic back to the forefront of my mind, so I didn't make an emotionally based decision, like breaking my no contact, or like saying, hey, come over, let's talk about this, or doing something that was driven from my emotions because I let my logic go out the window. So it is a hard thing to kind of learn how to balance again, is because we've been so trained to be led by those emotions. I hate those boxes. I just use Toads. The only reason I still use these boxes is because the little boxes, it's kind of like a Tetris game from hell. It's a bunch of these little boxes that go in a big box. And I don't have an ornament tote yet. That is a purchase for another year. I don't know when I'll ever get that. But eventually this is just going to fall apart to me. They already are. Pardon the noise. It's going to be noisy for a second. Ugh. Okay. My Fitbit consistently ran my pulse 20 beats higher than normal when I was in that relationship. Holy cow. So yeah, isn't that crazy? Like, I was actually talking to a client on a coaching call yesterday, and she was in a position where she had to go, not like back to the abuser, but it was holidays. So she was in the area, I think she may have actually, she was in the home that they used to live in to visit her kids. And she said that her blood pressure went up to 180 over 110. Like, we do actually have physical responses because of these relationships, y'all. This is not fake. It's real. There's actually a whole area in our brain called the HPA axis that gets altered because of chronic stress. Not just even chronic trauma. Chronic stress. It's the... I always get it mixed up. It's either the hypothalamus or hippocampus. I think it's the hypothalamus. Don't quote me on that. I need to look that up again. The pituitary gland and the adrenal gland. It's the areas that help you regulate your stress when your stress is high. And then when those are put on overdrive for so long, you literally have chemical changes that go on in your brain. So I promise y'all, you're not crazy. It's just, unfortunately, there's just a lot of work that has to be done after these relationships, which sucks. And it feels so unjust because we're stuck here. I think of it as like a natural disaster, right? So back in March, my family has some land, out in the country. I have to watch my time. My family has some land out in the country. And this past March, we had a tornado, like, literally hit our property, like, where our house is at out there. Like, the tornado, like, it's a miracle we have the house because the tornado was, like, forming around the house. So all of these, like, 100, 200-year-old pine trees, like, fell in a circle around the house. Now, this was back in March, right? Actually, if you scroll, like, way back in my TikTok, I have a video from when we went out there to see the house. It was, like, 2 days after the tornado hit. And it's just this, like, again, we have the house. That's great. And we were so blessed that happened. But our property, there was just this mass destruction. It maybe took 5 minutes, maybe shorter than that, for all that damage to occur. We were just able to go back to that house at the end of December. Like, it took 9 months to get the property and the plumbing and the electricity and, like, waiting for insurance and, like, all this stuff. It took all this time to even get it back to functioning. But it took maybe a couple of minutes. I was only with my, like, my point to this is that there's a lot of mental damage that has been done because of these relationships, and we can't speed up that healing, but we do need to have a plan, and we do need to have strategies and work, and we need to, it's like a summation of, like, the small daily things that you do over time, but it takes time. One of the biggest things that I tell people all the time is don't compare your healing journey to somebody else's. We all went through different levels of trauma, and we all went through different experiences in the relationship. We went through different experiences before the relationship. Like, maybe someone has had the opportunity to build resiliency more than somebody else. Like, resiliency is a skill set. Like, it's something that you build. Comparing your timeline is one of the worst things that you can do because you don't know everybody's story. So that's why when people ask me, like, well, how long did it take you and blah, 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 I answer that question for people, but I always remind them, but it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter how long it took me. It's about you, and if you're doing the work, that's all that matters. Like, who cares how long it takes you? Take as much time as you need. I'd rather see someone take 5 years to get over this and never deal with it again than only take a couple of weeks and feel like they're supposed to be somewhere that they aren't yet, and then they rush into something, or they just start. And this isn't even about romantic relationships, you know. They continue to accept these kind of behaviors from family members or friends, or this is so much deeper than just dating. Like, these kind of behaviors exist in every kind of relationship. That was a very random rant. I don't even know what got me started on that. That's what happens when I go live. Okay, here we go. Y'all gonna see me lose my mind over these damn boxes. You have a beautiful energy. Oh, thank you. Excited for the session on Saturday. Me too. I cannot wait. I really can't. So if you guys don't know, Dr. Carrie McAvoy and I, we actually do a group coaching. It's 6 weeks, and it's called Reclaiming Your Peace and Clarity. No, Reclaiming Your Peace and Confidence after Narcissistic Abuse. And we have our next session on. We have one group going where it's their fourth session, and then we have one group, it's their first session this Saturday. But we are going to be opening up a third group. The registration for that's not open yet. However, there's a waiting list. So if you guys are interested in that, you can go just put your name on the waiting list for that. Again, it's with me and Dr. Carrie McAvoy. And we just, we help you kind of put this plan together as well. And just give you like specific strategies. So it's not support group style. I'm very pro support groups. Like, I'm starting my own with Lindsay Goodman as well. But that's not what the goal of this group is. This group is actual like strategies, like what to do. And learning like how to calm down your nervous system, how to manage emotions, understanding what rumination is. So anyways, we are going to be doing a third group with that. And we have a waiting list going for that. But I'm very excited on Saturday too. Hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, and amygdala. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. I do know what you're talking about. So those are kind of very like trauma related. Those are the top 3 areas. But the HPA axis that I learned about in school this past semester was more about stress, because it was about like the cortisol levels and how cortisol damages those areas. I really think it's hippocampus. It's hippocampus, adrenal cortex, and pituitary gland. But that goes to show there's a lot of things that happen to your brain after this. Okay, what do I do next? Thank you for Googling that and helping me. Hello from Arizona. Hello. That's where I get so confused. It's been 2 months and I feel fine, and it's so confusing. Like, why am I still not affected? Well, that's actually a great problem to have. I mean, you may not feel anything because you may have had the opportunity to reach a level of understanding of who this person was long before the breakup, you know? A lot of us, we were either discarded or we were forced to discard. That's what happened with me. And the actual day of the breakup was very traumatic. That was the worst it was in our entire relationship. And you may have just gotten, sometimes people just get done. Like they see them for who they are, and they realize enough's enough, and they're able to just get to that place where they're just done. And you know what? That's great. Like, don't feel bad, like, for not feeling like you should be. Don't feel like you should feel a certain way if you don't feel that way, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, I just have to say that these pine cones are probably my favorite ornament that we have on the tree. I think they're so cute. My fiance said he wanted to, like, we've done this tree twice now. And he's like, I want to change the tree next year. I'm like, that's rude. Ah! God bless. Falling apart again. Oh God, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Oh, sorry. I just saw this comment. I've been listening to a book that said that trauma can be passed through generations. Absolutely it can. It's called A Generational Curse. It absolutely can. Because here's the thing, and this is not, please hear my heart, this is going to sound really ageist, and there's no way for me to say it where it doesn't. But mental health was just not a thing. Like, it wasn't a thing, it wasn't accepted. You know, I love my family, but there's certain generations where you just didn't talk about depression. If you struggled, you dealt with it. You put on the face, you toughened up, and you went and did what you needed to do. Well, because of that, the residual effects of trauma are therefore passed down from generation to generation. That's all I'm going to say on that before I get myself in trouble. Because I will get myself in trouble. Okay, now I'm confused. I have another little thingy for 2 more pine cones. But I don't have 2 more pine cones on the street. I have 2 owls. Wait-oh. It's because I put 2 of the pine cones in the owl one. No wonder they kept falling out. Don't tell my fiance that. I'll never hear the end of that one. Yeah, generational curse, generational cycles, it's all the same stuff, for sure. That is why, when you deal with these toxic family environments, the person that is trying to break out of the cycle is the black sheep. Because they are trying to change the narrative of the family dynamic. They aren't putting up with the toxic BS anymore. Because here's the thing. Toxic family environments, they come from a place of trauma. Like they come from a place of trauma. So when you have that person that's like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not accepting these behaviors. I'm okay not being okay. Blah, blah, blah. They get blacklisted. And they turn into the black sheep. Because they are changing the narrative. And they're going against the grain. So ironically, in toxic family environments, usually, the healthiest person of all of them is the least liked. Oh, hi, fiance. I hope you missed my my little moment that I just had. That's me. I was the black sheep. Yep. And to that girl, I say you keep doing you, boo. I would much rather be a black sheep in a dynamic than that. Than anything else. Ah! Just kidding. Thought I broke it. Ma'am, no. These are not your 2 toys. What's the easiest narcissistic red flag to see? Give me a minute. That's a really freaking good question. Hang on. Well, I mean, I can tell you what the easiest one that I saw was. God. That, like, I knew right away was a red flag, but I chose to ignore. Oh, by the way, I love this sign. It says, whoever said laughter is the best medicine had clearly never tasted liquor. Okay, so I see a lot of people saying love bombing. Here's why I'm not going to say that. Even though, yes, you are correct. That is like a tall tale red flag. The reason why I would say that love bombing is not the easiest one to see is because there is such a thing as honeymoon phases in all relationships. And that can get confusing because sometimes we have to be really careful to not think that a honeymoon phase is love bombing or that love bombing is just the honeymoon phase, like vice versa. So I don't think that one's the easiest one. It may be for us now because now we know it. But for the general, like, I don't think that's the easiest one. It's a classic one, but I don't think it's the easiest one to, like, recognize right off the bat. Okay, so here's what I would say. And again, you have to pay attention to it. Listen to their stories. Like, really listen to their stories. What do I mean? Let me come over here. Are they the victim in literally every story, every situation, and every bad thing that has ever happened? Here's the real facts. No one person truly does attract that many toxic people. Like, yes, we all have several toxic people that come in and out of our life. But if they are the victim 100% of the time, and it is always everybody else's fault, gigantic, narcissistic, red flag. For example, with my ex, drama followed him everywhere, all the time. Doesn't matter if we were at the grocery store. Doesn't matter if he was at work. Doesn't matter if it was a phone call with his mama. Drama was every day, all day. And it was always everyone else's fault. They were crazy. They had an attitude. This person was nuts. This person was this. Blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, but there's only one common denominator in every single one of these stories, and it's you. So that's actually what I would say is an easy one to catch if you're paying attention, and that's one of the most classic ones also. That was a really good question. I appreciate that one. I like questions that make me think. Now, the speed of how fast things move, that's another pretty easy one, too. I would agree with that one as well. They're telling you that they love you on, like, the third date. Now, I make that face not in judgment because, girl, it happened to me. But looking back now, you can't love me after 3 dates. You don't even know me. I'm a gem, but I'm also kind of hard to live with sometimes. That's my fiance. But I know I'm a gem still at the end of the day. Ew, you agreed with that a little bit too strongly, my dear. Or you're meeting their parents after 1 month. That could be. I don't know if that's necessarily... I'm actually going to disagree with that one just a little bit. And the only reason why I think after a month, that's not terribly uncommon. I think if it was, again, like the second or third date, then yeah, maybe. But I've known healthy relationships where I've met family sooner than that. Not like the whole fam, but like I've met like cousins, and I have met a parent. You know, like, oh, why don't you meet up with us? We're over here. You know, whatever. Like, and those were healthier relationships too. So I don't know if that's necessarily always the case. I think, again, that's one of those things that you have to look at the whole picture. Like, if that's it by itself. If it's just that, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about that. But if it's that, and they said I loved you in the first week, and they've, you know, showered you with gifts, and they're already planning your honeymoon, and like talking about like all this stuff, and all this has happened within the first month, yes, all of that combined. Whoa, Billy, that's a lot. Well, crap. Oh, no, just kidding. I had another box. I thought it was out. Okay, here's a question for y'all. Looking back now, and I have a reason for doing this, so stick with me. So participate with me. Looking back on the relationship now, what are some red flags that you saw, but for some reason you chose to ignore? Comment those. We don't have to go into the reason why we ignored it right now, but I'm actually going to do an exercise with you guys that I do in my coaching calls. So, what were some red flags that you saw that for some reason you chose to ignore? Like, you know that you saw them, you know that was like, ooh, something's a little off about that, but we moved on. And again, there's no judgment coming from this. I'm actually going to help you guys with something. So we're not going to comment this and get mad at ourselves. We're not going to feel bad. We're not going to, like, that's not what we're doing here. I'll give you guys like one more minute, maybe two. I just love my ornaments. They're just so cute. Can you even see them in the box? Probably not. Ooh, I just saw one pop up that said my mother warned me about him. So did mine. I hate it when she's right. And that was also part of my problem. I wanted to prove my mommy wrong. And I thought she was just having an issue with the fact that I was gay. Because he was my first same-sex relationship. Turns out it was none of that. She just didn't like him. Rightfully so, mama. But don't you hate it? I hate that sometimes. Okay, now, you are all commenting all of these like red flags that y'all saw. My mom warned, financial issues. Oh God, mine had that too. Blaming all the exes and family, alcohol abuse, aggressive statements, telling me I was too good for him. Control, his way or the highway. Whoop. He blamed his ex for everything. So here's what's really cool, y'all. Oh, disappearing act, trying to tell me what to wear politely. Oh, his mother warned you. Oh. Okay, so the reason why I'm having y'all do this, one of the biggest issues that we have after we leave a narcissistic or toxic person is because... One of the biggest issues we have after leaving a narcissistic and toxic person is this feeling like I'm not going to be able to ever trust myself again. Give me a thumbs up if you feel that way. I don't know, I think I broke it. Okay, yeah, so we got some people that agree. Here's the thing. You just proved to yourself that you have great intuition. You saw these red flags. You knew that they were there. And we're not going to beat ourselves up for the fact that we have them, or that we saw them and we ignored them. What happened was and this is a whole nother topic, but there was a narrative that was going on in our head that allowed us to make the decision that we made. Like we put we put more weight into whatever story we were telling ourselves over the red flag that we saw right in front of us. But you just proved to yourself you have great intuition. You just proved to yourself that you can see red flags, that red flags reveal themselves. You don't even necessarily have to look for them. They're just going to appear. That's why they're called red flags, not camo flags, okay? They just show up. Now what you have to do in the future is just listen to your gut. That's it. Don't ignore the red flags. You've now learned the lesson of this is what happens when I ignore the red flags. So it's not that you can't trust yourself. It's that you have to trust yourself enough and trust your judgment to listen to yourself and listen to it. What's wrong? Sorry, my dog's whining. She's whining during my speech. That's rude. Go. I'm convinced that puppies are narcissistic. At least mine is. I love her though. Like a true trauma bond. She's a narcissistic little puppy, but I love her. So hopefully that actually kind of helped you guys a little bit. You can trust yourself. You have great intuition. You will see the red flags. Now you just think it's not about trusting yourself. It's about committing to yourself. I will not ignore red flags again. I will not ignore my intuition again. That's really what it's about. And when it comes to trusting other people is just a choice. Like, you see things in people that make you feel like they are a trustworthy person or not. But ultimately, it's still a choice. The important part is trusting yourself. Trust yourself to get out when needed, exactly. Okay, y'all, I have a coaching call coming up here in like about an hour, so I need to get off not right now. I need to get off around 4, just so I have time to deglitter. Actually, I'll just leave it. But I do need to get off around 4 to get ready for that. So, do y'all have any questions for the last 25 to 30 minutes that I have left on here? This is the part I hate, which is taking off the lights. So I'm old-fashioned. I don't have a pre-lit tree. Mainly because I think that pre-lit trees are a little bit of a conspiracy. Because the lights always go out before the tree does, which just makes you have to buy another tree because then you don't have any lights on the tree. Well, screw that. I'm just not getting a pre-lit tree. I'm just going to light it myself. Okay, so comment if you guys have any questions real quick while I'm finding this. I've also got to check these lights because I think my cat chewed them because they randomly stopped working right before Christmas. Can you talk about after effects being triggered even after no contact? Yes. Okay. So in my course, I actually have something called a trigger managing sheet. It's literally a worksheet that you work in the course. So I'm going to give you a little preview to it. There's a concept of ABCs of trigger. And it's the action, which is the activating event, which is what happened, the actual trigger. Then there's the belief, which is what did that tell me? What was the belief surrounding that action? No. And then C, what was the consequence? How did I respond? How did I act? Did my... for example, an ABC event for me was... I don't think I've talked about this on TikTok before. So when I was moving out of the house that he and I lived in... This is so freaking twisted. God, I put these on good. Okay. I was actually packing up my kids' room. Hang into this. I was packing up my kids' room this was like several months after I had kicked him out. I was already in contact at this point. And guess what I freaking found in the top shelf of my children's closet? A pack of condoms. They were not mine. We did not use them. So guess who was using those? In my freaking kids' room. Okay? Now, finding the condom was the activating event. Clearly. It was quite triggering. The belief, the thought process around that was obviously, it was further evidence of the cheating. And it told me that I wasn't enough. Like, that was the belief system that I had. I wasn't enough for him, I wasn't masculine enough, I wasn't fit enough, I wasn't whatever. So then my consequence was, my chest got tight, my face went flush, like, my heart rate went up, like, I cried, I was angry, like, I had all of these emotions, rightfully so. Everything I felt was completely righteous. But the thing we have to know about triggers is that we can't always control the activating event. Like, we can't control what happens, right? We know that. We can't control when the old song comes on the radio. We can't control when their favorite TV show pops up on our recommended views. You know, we can't, there's a lot of things that we can't control when it comes to the actual trigger. But what we can control is changing our belief system. So I told myself it had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with the fact that I was or was not enough. It had everything to do with him, and that enough was never enough for him. And that's one of the, like I said, this whole practice is actually in my course that helps you break down individual triggers and how to, like, change your belief system around them so that way it can change how you respond to them. And it really is a mental strategy. Like, it's called, like, the fancy term for it is called cognitive behavior therapy. It's where you're literally changing your belief systems so that way it can help affect your actions. But there's always some kind of story that a trigger tells us. And we just have to figure out what that story is and then change it. So again, I have a whole week on this in my course that's called Breaking Free from Rumination, How to Reclaim Your Peace and Clarity After Narcissism. It helps you heal, it educates you, it helps restore. There's a whole week dedicated to trigger management. So if you are struggling with that, start the course for that alone. Obviously do the whole thing because it helps. But there is a whole week devoted to that. Ah! I got thick thighs. I'm gonna get knocking my crap over. Yeah. Okay. I dragged my fully decorated tree into the office, out of sight, out of mind. That is my level of energy. Unfortunately, I live in a one-bedroom apartment right now, so that's not an option for me. But I love it. That's hilarious. That really made me laugh. Do you try to explain to family about your narc abuse if they don't listen? If they don't listen, no. You're just setting yourself up to get upset and hurt. No, that's a no for me. Now, they can listen, but still not understand. And that's where you just, okay, prime example. So we talked about my mom earlier. I love my mom. I have a great relationship with my mom. My mom hated my ex. Like, hated him. I didn't know that. She always made him feel welcome in their home. But she was very honest with me after we broke up how much she did not like him. Because my mom saw through him from the beginning, she was relieved when I broke up with him. So in her mind, it's like, he's an asshole. Like, he was never good enough for you. He was never this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're so much better than him. Like, why are you hung up on him? And it's because she saw my worth, right? And so because she could see my worth, she's like, I hate that he has this much power over you. So she didn't understand it. But there were times where she was a little harsh. And I know she didn't mean to be. But she was. So I just had to learn how to communicate with my mom when it came to that. And honestly, I just didn't really talk about it much with my mom. I talked about it with my friends that understood it more. But I remember there was a day where I was home alone. The kids were with their mom. And I just needed someone. And I called my mom and I said, I don't need you to say anything. I don't need you to fix anything. I don't need anything. I just need you to come and hold me while I cry. That's all I need. And she did it. So when I was specific about what I needed and she honored and respected my wishes and my boundaries around that event, then I can do that kind of stuff with her. But if your family doesn't honor your boundaries, where they, like, you tell them, don't try to fix it, don't tell me this, don't tell me that, and they're still doing it, just don't try, honestly. Oh, this is my least favorite part. It's taking the damn lights off. And I know, if I had a pre-lit tree, I wouldn't have to do this. But pre-lit trees are a scam. I'm telling you. Man, I put these on good. I cannot get it. Ugh, getting stuck. Okay. Okay. I'm going to take a break from that because I'm starting to sweat. What books did you read to help you with your healing? I didn't. I had no book recommendations, to be honest, because I was not a part of TikTok then. So I didn't know any books. Now I do. Obviously the one that most people probably heard of is Why Does He Do That? There's another one called What Happened to You by Bruce Perry. And I have several book recommendations in the link in my bio, actually. Y'all gonna see me lose my mind. I think we're there. Yep. Okay. And we're almost there. Okay, we're done. Lord, I'm literally sweating after that. Now I have to check these to see if my cat chewed them, because they did. They randomly stopped working. Like right before Christmas. Ooh. Hang on 1 second for me, guys. I'll literally be back in like 1 minute. Hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry. I had to turn my thermostat down because I was literally sweating. Okay. My family hated my ex as well. They all saw him for what he was. Yeah, mine did too. And again, that was like, I'm a Taurus, so I'm incredibly stubborn. And that was honestly like one of the reasons that I stayed as long as I did, was because I really wanted to prove everybody wrong. Because I was like, you don't know him like I do, blah, blah, blah. And that's true. They didn't know him like I did. Because I believed a fake version of him existed. They saw him for the real thing. Hey, at least I'm honest that I'm stubborn, babe. Okay, I have about 15 minutes left. Okay, now, I like doing this kind of interactive stuff. I've never done this on a live before, where I have y'all comment stuff. But now what I want y'all to do, I want y'all to tell me, not a New Year's resolution, I'm not a big New Year's resolution person, but I want y'all to tell me one thing that you are committed to this year when it comes to your personal growth and your personal healing. Like, what is something that you are going to commit to? For me, it's allowing myself to have downtime. I get really guilty when I take breaks or when I don't do anything. Like, for example, I'm in grad school, if you guys don't know. I'm getting my doctorate right now. And we had finals. I'm not seeing any chew. They may have just gone out. I finished finals on a Thursday at like 10 a.m. and I had told myself, like, okay, just don't do anything the rest of Thursday. Like, don't make content. Like, don't have calls. Like, and I blocked my schedule off so I couldn't take any calls that day. Oh, I think I found the problem. Broken bulb. Anyway, sorry. ADD moment. So I told myself, like, just don't do anything. Like, you've earned it. I had 4 finals back to back, like literally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning. You know, and I struggled. Like, I went back to bed after my test was over and I took a nap. And then after that, I was like sitting on the couch, like watching TV, and I feel like I need to be doing something. I should be doing something. And I just feel really bad sometimes taking downtime. So what happens is I'll go like 6 to 8 weeks, like nonstop, like balls to the wall. And then I hit this point where I just completely crash and I don't want to do anything. But obviously that's not very productive. And it's not a healthy cycle for me. So that's my commitment. Is just incorporating breaks. And being okay with breaks. What songs make you feel empowered? Ooh, good question. So I am actually a very musically inclined person. I love music. I've sang growing up. I've played piano growing up. I was a worship pastor for a church at one point in time. So honestly, like, worship music does make me feel very empowered. Because that's kind of like my love language to God. But in general, oh my God, I forgot the name of it. Oh, pretty much anything by Kelly Clarkson. Catching My Breath is one of my favorites of hers. Because if you really listen to the lyrics, it's really good. So definitely check that one out. Had a stray. And I have nowhere to put him. But if you like are also in a mood, I listen to a lot of country music. If you're also in a mood of just like kind of like almost kind of like a badass vibe, like female empowerment vibe too. Carrie Underwood has some really good ones. I can hear the song in my head. I'm trying to think of the name of it. I think it's called Flat on the Floor. I really like that one. Go listen to Carrie Underwood's song called Good Girl. It is so about like someone getting a new supply. It's hilarious. Like now that like when I hear some of these older songs that have been out for a little while, not that that's an old song, but just songs that have been out with the knowledge base that I know, I'm like, ooh, I know exactly what she's talking about. Okay. All right, I want to read some of y'all's commitments to yourself. So stay in therapy and more AA meetings, hike more. I love hiking. I love those. That's great. Go new places and try new things. Yes, my narc didn't want to do anything. I was structured to be home. Yep. In between my narcissistic ex and my fiance, I actually traveled a lot. So yes, absolutely. Go experience new places. Go do new things. Go see that there's a much bigger world out there outside of the little bubble that they forced you in. Keeping my peace, rest, and keeping my boundaries up. I love that. Loving all of me, the good, bad, and healing my inner child. Amen to that. I wish I had a gay guy friend. We are kind of the best. Oh, Piece by Piece by Kelly Clarkson's a really good song too. I have a trauma bond recovery playlist. I love that. And hi, Brett. Lauren Daigle's really good too. She kind of has this like... she has a little bit of like an Adele vibe to her voice. A little bit. Obviously, there's only one Adele. But she does kind of have that vibe to her. Oh. I always think I get everything, and then inevitably I pull it out the next Christmas and there's still something on it. We're going to try to break that cycle this year. Actually, I really do think I got everything. Ew. Okay, so some more commitments are coming in. Date myself. I'm exercising daily and trying to build confidence in myself again. If anything, like, just the exercise, like, what it does for me is it just allows me to, like, get out of my head. Like, that. Here's the weird thing. I used to hate running growing up. Like, hated it. That's why I quit soccer. It was just too much running. I played soccer for 2 years, 5th grade and 6th grade. And then I was done after that. Because they had me in midfield. It's, like, literally the one that runs the most. After I left my narcissistic ex, I was actually at my place out in the country that my family has. And, you know, there's, like, these beautiful back roads. And I was sitting in the living room of that house, and I just had this thought come into my brain where I was like, I want to go for a run. And that's just weird for me. But I was like, okay, you know, I'm just going to roll with it. And running or walking, it lets me just get out of my head. And it has, like, you know, there's a rhythm to when you walk and when you run. And actually in the book I'm reading right now, What Happened to You by Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey, he talks about, like, we naturally get soothed. Like, if you think about when we were a baby, or if you have, like, a child, one of the things that you do when you soothe a baby is you can rock them, and it's like this rhythm, right? Or, like, you bounce them when you're holding them. Rhythms actually, like, we're ingrained to, like, be soothed by rhythms, which is why so many people do like walking and running and stuff, because it, like, that's, and when I read that I was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense why running just makes me feel like I get out of my head. Like, it truly does calm me down. It made so much sense. So if anything, just do it just to, even if you don't necessarily have, like, a specific weight goal, or, like, you're not doing it for that, or whatever it might be, just do it just to feel good and just get the endorphins. Bye, Christmas tree. Let me see if there's any other ones. I can't run unless I'm chased. I hear that a lot. I found a new love for reading and journaling. I'm telling you what, y'all, I'm not lying. Journaling saved my mental health when I was healing from this. It truly, truly did. I journaled every day for 6 weeks. Every day. I'm getting a Doberman tomorrow, so I'll have to make myself go for walks. I'm not gonna lie, Dobermans scare me. I used to work at a vet office, and one of the workers, she had 2 Dobermans. And she used to bring them up there all the time. I was like, can you please not bring them here when I'm here? Like, I feel like they're just staring at me, just waiting to pounce. I will say, though, Dobermans are very smart dogs. I have a Corgi who thinks she's a Doberman. Alright, guys. Well, I'm going to probably wrap it up so I can... Yeah, this part's going to be really noisy. So, I'm going to wrap it up here. And also, I have a coaching call in like 30 minutes. So, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me while I did this. And I hope it was helpful. I hope you guys got something out of it. Few housekeeping things, just so y'all know. Again, my course is on my bio. It's the Breaking Free from Rumination course. It literally is going to lay out a whole map for you on how to get out of this obsessive thinking cycle. By far the hardest cycle that I had to get out of after I left my narcissistic ex. Please check it out. There's a whole free preview on my website. The link to that's in my bio. There are 2 webinars coming up. Dating Again, and then the author of Why Does He Do That is actually doing a webinar with Dr. Carrie McAvoy. Both of those are in the link in my bio too. Just go to the link in my bio. All my resources are there. I also have a free monthly newsletter. I will never charge for this newsletter. It's one of my free resources that I do. So if you want to sign up for that, again, you can go to the link in my bio for that too. It gives you like self-care tips, book recommendations. I usually highlight a different creator in this niche every month. So all of that is there. Now that all that's out of the way. Thank you guys for being here. Thank y'all for your continued support. Y'all are always so encouraging to me, and just say how much my content helps y'all, but I don't think y'all realize how much you help me too. And just remind me of why I do what I do. So I appreciate all the love and support that you guys give me. And I hope if y'all are getting your Christmas decorations down today too, that you don't lose your mind over little plastic boxes like I did. So, but I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And we will catch each other on my next live. So y'all have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.